Songwriting for me is the thing that makes me feel special in some way. That I feel elevated in some way. It's the one aspect of my life where I don't feel mediocre.
We were married under cherry trees, under blossom we made our vows. All the blossom come sailing down through the streets and through the playground. The sun would stream on the sheets, woken by the morning bird. We'd buy the Sunday newspapers and never read a single word. People, they no good. People, they no good. People, they no good at all.
Many people thought the Australian singer and songwriter Nick Cave wouldn't live beyond the 1980s. When he and his band, The Birthday Party, arrived in Britain at the beginning of that decade, their concerts were orgies of self-hatred, audience disdain, and ear-bleeding intensity. A skeletal and confrontational frontman, Cave's lifestyle was as extreme as his performances, and he seemed to be heading for a drug-fueled rock and roll implosion. Yet, alongside this violent persona was a serious musician, and 20 years later, backed by his band The Bad Seeds, Cave is now one of the most acclaimed songwriters of his generation. He was born in 1957, the son of an English teacher. Cave's influences are as much literary as they are musical, and in 1989 he published a critically acclaimed novel called And the Ass Saw the Angel. He's acted in several feature films and written screenplays, but it's for his songwriting that he's most well known. In our BBC Southbank Show, we look at the world of Nick Cave through his songs and the artists that inspired them.
Well, my daddy left home when I was 3, and he didn't leave much to Ma and me, just this old guitar and an empty bottle of booze. Now, I don't blame him because he run and hid, but the meanest thing that he ever did was before he left, he went and named me Sue. Well, I grew up quick and I grew up mean. My fists got hard, my wits got keen. Roamed from town to town to hide my shame. But I made me a vow to the moon and stars I'd search the honky-tonks and bars and kill that man that gave me that awful name.
Watching the Johnny Cash show on TV with my mum and dad when I was, I suppose, about 9 years old or something like that. It seemed like the most radical thing I'd ever seen. The Man in Black. I hadn't even thought of music as being kind of an evil thing before. And it was Johnny Cash who sort of put that spark into me, I think. Nick the Stripper was as close to a pop song as The Birthday Party ever got. It was a kind of celebration of evil. Very strange, twisted little song.
Nick the Stripper's in the great tradition of rock and roll self-aggrandizement. It's just, you know, it's a song about the singer himself, you know, like a Bo Diddley song or something in a kind of perverted form. It's about Nick being wild and uncontrolled and untamable.
What The Birthday Party were doing was putting forward some version of hell, but it always felt like we were reaching up from the gutter in some way. My father was an English literature teacher, and he was very much interested in poetry and theatre as well. And he always considered the written word to be at the top. and I suspect that he considered rock and roll to be at the bottom.
His father had instilled in him this love of literature and this sort of refreshing way of interpreting books, including the Bible, you know, as a work of literature. It's quite important to say this. As much as there is faith in Nick's songs, there was always this sense that he can play around with the sources, including the Bible. And God's always there on his shoulder.
We've laid the cables and the wires. We've split the wood and stoked the fires. We've lit our town so there is no place for crime to hide. Our little church is painted white, and in the safety of the night, we all go quiet as a mouse, for the word is out. God is in the house. God is in the house. God is in the house. Now no one's left in doubt. God is in the house.
I was 3 years in the choir, so I had quite a good understanding of the Bible just from being in church a lot. Once I started art school, I became very interested in the religious painters, and I started to read the Bible a lot, especially the Old Testament, and was just fascinated by what I read. My songs started to fill up with this kind of imagery. I guess I gave up reading the Old Testament after a while because it seemed to be having a bad effect on me. And I think my lyrics were starting to labor under it somewhat. And I started reading the New Testament. What attracts me to Christ is that he's baffling because he is a divine figure, but he's acting very much as a human being. And in that regard, he is understandable. God is in the House came about from driving through small-town America with my wife on our honeymoon. And we met people and we talked to people, and there was that idea of civic pride coupled with a fear of the evils of the outside.
Homos roaming the streets in packs, queer bashers with tired jacks, lesbian counterattacks. That stuff is for the big cities. Our town is very pretty. We have a pretty little square and a woman for a mayor. Our policy is perfect faith. Now that God is in the house.
It's really about community, and there's a lot to be said for that, I think. But there's also, I guess, it's restrictive in some way, in that it's often fearful. Fear of the outside closing in.
Post-crucifixion, baby. Post-crucifixion. And all I've got. Oh, it's a wild world. Oh, it's a wild world. Oh, it's a wild world. Hey, it's a wild world. It's a wild world. Hey, yeah, hey.
That song is about two people against the world. And I think that a lot of my songs are about two people against the world. I saw the world as a kind of punishing place, a bad place, a place of chaos. Certainly my life felt like that. We drank a lot. We experimented with drugs. We took a lot of drugs. Took a lot of drugs for a long time. And our life was yeah, lives were very much reflected by the kind of music that we played.
Scratch, scrape, scratch, scrape, scratch, scrape, scratch, this winning thing.
It was clear it was a dead end, that if we wanted to continue to do something, we had to change. I went back to Australia. I think I sort of drifted around for a year or so. And I think Mick sort of found me and put the idea of starting another group. And so we put together the Bad Seeds.
The Bad Seeds were a much more focused band. They were, and I'd not patronise them in any way, but they were Nick Cave's backing band. Whereas the Birthday Party was this maelstrom of noise where every part was sort of equal and often equally disordered. Whereas this, to me, felt like quite an old-fashioned band who were there to do a job, and that job was to illustrate these lyrics and illustrate that music.
The lyrics became more focused. Words weren't just used as kind of weapons. They were used to put across my particular idea of the world at that time. Tupelo is based on John Lee Hooker's extraordinary song about the flood of Tupelo.
Happened a long time ago. A little country town. In Tupelo, Mississippi. It rained and it rained.
I remember first hearing him when I was 19 or 20, and it was just one of those moments where the tone of his voice, the kind of like laconic way he put this line across, the guitar playing, which was extraordinary and kind of radical guitar playing. You know, it really redefined all my ideas, I think, that I had up to that time.
That was women. That was children. It was screaming and crying. Lord, we have no one to turn to but you. Please save us.